Oh, sorry. I was just writing something incredible down. You want to know what it was? I got to meet you today. I get to be with you today. It's amazing, you know. I like this journal because I'm writing my story. My story. Each and every one of us has a story that we're writing right now. It's the story of our life. Like me, I've been a broadcaster, I've been an entertainer, I've been a filmmaker. I've had all sorts of jobs. In fact, one of my jobs was a puppeteer. I never thought I would be a puppeteer. Do you want to meet my puppet? His name is Buckley. This is a guy I worked with for 10 years. Never thought I'd be working with a dog. I never thought I'd be working with a human. Well, tough luck. You had to work with me. What's your story, buddy? We were just talking about stories. Do you have a story? Yeah, I have a story. Well, what's your story? Peanut butter and jelly. Peanut butter and jelly. Yep, it's the story of my lunch. Okay, well, you can go eat your lunch now, Buckley. Thanks for joining us. Thank you. Thank you very much. Say goodbye, Buckley. Bye, Buckley. Bye. Yes, stories. I am writing my story, and every little while I pick up a pen and I write about my life. And then I ask God to pick up His pen and help me write a little more. You see, He knows my story better than anybody else. From the day I was conceived to today, I'm a husband, I'm a father, and a grandfather. What a story has been written so far. Each day I'm reminded of the gifts that He gives me, and I try to remind myself of the gift I can be to others. What are the gifts? Well, we all have time, and we all have talent to some degree, and we all have treasure. Those are the three things that we're gifted with. You have to pray about it to know what they are. But in the end, those gifts are going to be the gifts I give to my family, to the church, and to the village. And the same goes for you, no matter what your age. St. John Paul II said, "The future of humanity passes by way of the family. Children are a blessing from our Lord and a gift to the family at every stage, from conception through to adulthood." Each child is a gift to each member of the family unit, and God has a plan for each of us, no matter our age or ability. Each of us has our own unique story we're writing, but again, we have to ask God to help us write the story. How about my story? My story so far. Well, I grew up in Southern Ontario, Canada. I came from a family of 7 kids. I produced lots of films, but my favorite production and my favorite story, I guess, is the story of my family. And the greatest gift here was the gift of our children. Do you know that God has been thinking about your story forever? God is waiting for you to ask Him to help you write the rest of your story? You might ask why. Well, because God has a plan and a purpose for your life. I know it's hard to imagine, but let me explain it. Have you ever seen a fingerprint? You know, like a fingerprint? Did you know that there's no fingerprint just like yours? None of them. It's kind of like a snowflake. No two of them are the same. Each of us, at the moment we were conceived in our mother's womb, God gave us a one-of-a-kind fingerprint. It's called DNA. Scientists have discovered that there's no single DNA alike. Yours is different from mine, and everyone else in all of history, going right back to Adam and Eve and going forward to my great-great-great-great-great-grandchild. Nobody will be the same. Everyone will have a unique DNA. A unique fingerprint. No one is like you. So God made us unique. He made us one of a kind. He thought about us for all of time. Wow. You got to figure, if He did that, He must have a plan for us. In fact, He told us He did. In Jeremiah, in the Old Testament, he was a great prophet. He said, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope." And Jeremiah again writes, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you. I knew you. And before you were born, I consecrated you. And I have appointed you a prophet to the nations." Wow. A prophet to the nations. That's pretty huge. Well, actually, a prophet is just someone who proclaims the will of God. Someone who helps God proclaim His book of life. You know what that is? His book of life is the Bible. But I'm just a kid, you might say. I'm just a teenager. I'm just a person working in this job or that job, or I'm just a mom. But for you kids out there, you know what Jesus said about kids? Well, in the Gospel of Mark 9:14, he said, "Suffer the little children and forbid them not to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of heaven." That's right. Jesus was telling his followers to love children, to be like them. And the best part is, he says that we have to be like little children to enter into heaven. That's quite a responsibility. Isn't that cool, though? I mean, I'm from a family of 6, and when I was 10 years old, my mom and dad said there was going to be a new baby coming. I was going to have a baby brother. That would make 6 plus 1, 7. You got it, you young kids out there. God was writing another chapter for my mom and dad. It was a bonus chapter. My baby brother, Brian, such a dear friend. Wow, God has a plan and a purpose. He's been one of my best friends. 7 kids. You know, there's lots of great things about having a big family, and I'm gonna share them with you. One of them is, well, it's kind of selfish, I guess, is more presents to open on Christmas morning. But more to the point, seeing older siblings struggle with various things, you know, friends, disappointments, setbacks, cares, that helped me when my time came along to understand that life isn't always the greatest. Sometimes things happen in our lives that we need to struggle with. We need to ask God to help us with. But seeing my older siblings struggle through these things really, really helped me. It prepared me for future. It prepared me for fatherhood. But it's not always easy. Like any good story, it's going to have its ups and downs. Sometimes we feel challenged finding our place within the family as the youngest, the oldest, or a middle child. We might be jealous of the different gifts and talents our brothers and sisters have. I don't know, I felt that way sometimes. But I have to always remember that each of us is very unique. Remember the fingerprint, the DNA? Each of us has our own plan and our own purpose set forth by God. He's reminding all of us that we have this if we only follow His will. How do we figure out what His will is? Well, we got to ask Him every day. I ask Him in my journal. Maybe you ask Him in a prayer. How about your family? Do you notice the differences, the unique gifts that each and every one of your family members has? I think about my own children. It's amazing how my wife and I, we raised all of our kids the same way, yet they're so different. One's a teacher, another a broadcaster, another a chaplain, another a salesperson. One's at college learning marketing, and one who'd love to be an actress and a stage singer. You might be asking, well, how am I special? What have you got planned for me, Lord? Again, ask God to pick up His pen and help you write your story. In other words, pray for God's will in your life, remembering always that He has a plan and a purpose, a story ready to write your life. It's like trying to write your name backwards in the air. Have you ever tried to do that? So mine would be K. I'm doing it backwards, remember. E, V, I, and then it's kind of hard to do. Now, remember, if somebody was in front of you, think about this. If somebody were in front of you guiding your hand, guiding my hand, they would find it easy because they see things the way they are. They would be K, E, V. They would do it really quickly because they see things the way they are. Well, that's God. God's on the other side. He sees the big picture. When we ask God to help us write our story, it might not always be easy, but He is always there to guide our hands. You know, it's been said that the best thing a father can do for his children is to love their mother. My wife and I we've been married for 33 years this December, and I think, wow, how did we get this far? I'll share you one little secret. Every Thursday night, we have date night. Every Thursday night for 33 years. I think we might have missed one or two, but we really try and stay faithful to it. We might go to a restaurant, but not always, because that gets pretty expensive. Sometimes we just go downstairs in our house and just close the door. And the kids always knew Thursday night, that was Dad's night. I call it the last Thursday of the week. A time for us to share, a time for us to get to know each other, share our struggles or something that happened that week. Communication is so, so important. So I challenge you parents to get that date night going if you don't do it. It's been so good for our marriage. And just like we're present to our wives on date night, we have to try to be present to our children. You know, I remember bedtime, putting the kids to bed. We'd always say our prayers, and we had this beautiful prayer that I remember from growing up. Good night, dear Lord, and Mary too. You both love me, and I love you. I remember this prayer that was passed down. Man, oh man, those were good things to remember. Children also naturally trust and love God with every aspect of their being, just like they trust us. Let the little children come to me, do not stop them, for it is to such as these that the kingdom of heaven belongs. Mark 10:14. Wow. I can't begin to count the many times our children have made me laugh or shown me true wisdom, especially by their trust in me. What a huge responsibility. So important, though, that if they're going to do that, if they're going to trust me like that, that I do form my conscience according to the church's teachings. I remember a time when my wife and we were struggling on the church's teaching on contraception. After 4 children, we made some pretty serious decisions. The 2 years that followed, I learned the church was not about taking away our freedom. So many people think that that's what the church is all about. When the church has wisdom, it rather is all about a true wisdom that the church is teaching us. If I had stayed in that darkness, in that contraceptive mentality, we wouldn't have had our 2 youngest, Therese and Christina. Man, how much joy they have brought our family. I see now in retrospect what a gift they were, not just to us, but to their older brothers and sisters. They would snuggle them. They would kiss them, especially my boys. They just loved those 2 little girls. They would protect them with their lives if they had to. And as for my boys, that was a real foreshadowing of being dads, as husbands. I'm going to wind up this talk about one of my specialties, and that is being a grandparent. As a kid, it's hard to believe that one day you're going to become a grandparent, but here I am at the young age of 54, and I'm a grandparent. Wow. Life is generational. Faith is passed down. We learn so much from our grandparents. I know I did. I know my own grandmother, her name was Edna. When she died, she had 9 children, 67 grandchildren, and 38 great-grandchildren. It was amazing. It actually made the front page of the local newspaper. Some little fun things I remember, and pearls of wisdom I remember from my grandma. Children bring their love with them. You know, she had a lot of kids, and so some people would say, "How come you have so many kids? Isn't that crazy?" And she would say, she said, "No. Children bring their love with them. Love. There is always enough love to go around when there are new little babies to love." It was God's plan. Another thing she would say, "He's in charge." My grandma lived through a depression, 2 world wars, the death of a husband, a child at childbirth. When the doctor told her she shouldn't have another child, her 5th, she said, "He's in charge." She went on to have 3 more children, and the second last one had me. I wouldn't be here without the trust of dear Edna. Trust in God. What a story my grandma wrote with God. It included me, my brothers, my sisters, all of our children and grandchildren. Sometimes I think about Jesus' grandparents. Did Jesus have grandparents? Yes, he did. Their names were Anne and Joachim. Now, I don't know this for sure, but I think they probably didn't know that their daughter was going to become the great Mother of God, Mary Most Holy. And their grandson was going to become the Son of God. But they lived their lives in that sense of trust, in that sense of holiness. Man, God has a plan and a purpose. What a story that is. And what a story He has for you. Your story. The one you are writing now. Just don't forget to ask God to pick up His pen and help Him write your story. Pray that His will be done in your life.